Hello everyone, welcome again to Quantitative Methods module. Today I will be doing the lecture 4 on index numbers. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to understand the concept behind the index numbers, as well as we will try to represent the data in terms of indices. Okay, so today we'll be working with the real data. So this piece of information on your screen is actually downloaded from Yahoo Finance. So if you go to Yahoo Finance and type Apple, you will have the same screen as I have right now. So let me quickly enable my highlighter. So this is the Apple Incorporation, and the Apple company has its own unique ticker name. And as of 5th of September 2019, the stock price is around $213 per share, right? So based on the yesterday's results, we have approximately a 2% increase in share price. So on the other half of the screen here, as you see, we've got the income statement of the Apple Incorporation, Apple company. So within the income statement, I've selected the revenue figures only. So within the revenue, we have the total revenue, we have the cost of revenue, and we have the gross profit. Okay, so since the all numbers here are in thousands, so I do apologize for this pen, for this little distraction. So since all these numbers are in thousands here, these numbers are in billions. Like this is like as of 2018, the total revenue of Apple company was around $265 billion, right? Or as of 2017, it was around 230 billion, or as of 16, that's 215 billion, or in 2015, it had just over 230 billion total revenue. Now, what is revenue? Let me quickly explain the revenue to you first. Whenever the Apple company sells its own products like the iPhones, the iWatches, iPads, what else? The laptops, right, and so on and so forth. Well, whenever the company sells all its products, the cash income, like the money that people pay for the products, is basically the total revenue for the company. Okay, so basically, as of 2018, Apple company sold 265 billion worth products, right? So within that number, you have all the Apple products, like we said, iPhones, like we said, laptops, and so on and so forth, right? Now, the other item, which is the cost of revenue here, for example, as of 2018, that's the $163 billion. That basically is the cost of producing those products. This is like, for example, in Uzbekistan, the iPhone 10, for example, is around $1,000, right? And let's assume in order to produce that particular product, the company spent around $700. Yes. So the difference between the 700 and the selling price, which is 1,000, basically turns out to be our gross profit. Okay. So per product, for example, the Apple company is making $300, assuming that the cost of the product is 700 and the selling price is 1,000, right? So the company is generating a gross profit of $300. Now, if you calculate all these gross profits, all these costs for individual products and sum them up, you would actually get 101 billion US dollars gross profit for the Apple company, right? So again, as of 2017, for example, $141 billion is basically, that's the cost of producing all those items that the Apple company managed to sell in 2017, right? And this is 131 is for 2016, 140 billion is for 2015. Now, as I said, if you minus the cost of revenue from the total revenue here, that's like, if the total revenue, if you minus the total revenue, this is the total cost, let me say that, right? Then you would get the GP. So hence the difference between the 265 and 163 is basically the 101 and so on and so forth. So hence we have all these numbers downloaded from Yahoo Finance. Okay, now let's move on. So what I have here is the left table basically has the same numbers. We don't have anything new. So for example, 215 revenue, that's 233 billion dollars. Yes, and this is what we have. Okay, so basically the numbers are the same. It is just I try to summarize it within a simple table here. Now, first, what we're going to try is we're going to try to construct a fixed base index. Okay, so the right table. Let's look at the right table to this table. So again, we have the same numbers, the same revenue, the same cost of revenue, and the gross profits for individual years, right, from 2015 to 2018. Now, what we're going to do is, what we're going to do is, first we're going to assign a certain base year. What do we mean by that? For example, in our data set, the observations are from 2015 to 2018, right? So hence, the beginning of the data set is usually the base year, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to highlight the 2015 as the base year, and hence, these hundreds will be assigned to individual revenues, cost of revenues, and the gross profits, okay? Now, what I'm going to do next is, I'm going to try to calculate the index for 2016. So here, of course, it's already calculated. Now, let me show you how I did that. So in order to find this particular number, the 92.3, I do apologize for my handwriting beforehand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this number, 215, so I will be short, and I'm going to divide that simply by 233, okay? And then at the end, I will simply multiply by 100. Now, if I do that, I will get the exact 92.3 number. Now, and how about this 98? So this 98, so let me quickly erase everything here. Now that number 98.1 is basically, again, this number this time, because that's the current figure, 229. So I'm going to be short with the numbers, all right? And I'm going to divide that again by what? By the 233. All right, and multiply by 100. And in that case, again, you're going to get the exact 98.1 index number, and so on and so forth. So in sum, let me make them to be in rectangle, right? And let me oval this 2015 figure. What I do is I'm going to simply divide this numbers by 2015 number, right? And then I'm going to simply multiply by 100, and by doing that, I will get these hundreds, 92s, 98, and 113.6 numbers, right? And I'm going to do the same computation, the same calculations for the cost of revenue. Yes, 131 billion divided by 140 gives us the 93. 141 billion divided by 140 again gives us the 100.7, and the 163 divided by again the 140 gives us the 116.9 number. Yes, okay. I really hope you now understand what I did basically with this table. Always remember, with a fixed base index here, you have to fix a certain year. So in my case, I assume that 2015 is my base year. That's why I'm going to assign the 100 to my base year for individual items like revenues, cost of revenues, and gross profits, right? And then, so I'm repeating myself just in case, and then I'm going to divide every single numbers here by what? By the base year number, all right? So again, for example, regarding the gross profits, I'm going to simply divide them by this number, all right? And do not forget about multiplying them by 100. So besides that, we also have the so-called chain base index. So previously we talked about the fixed base index. Now we're going to talk about the chain base index. I've got the same information, the same data here. So nothing new so far. I've got the same revenues, the cost of revenues, and gross profits. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate these numbers. So highlight. I'm going to calculate these numbers a bit differently. Well, as you see here, for example, these three numbers is the same as in the previous case. Do you see them? Right? But the other numbers here, they are different. So let me explain it now. Oops. It's very difficult to use this thing. It's a half pen or half pencil or digital pen. I don't know how to call this. So I do apologize for this technical issues. So let me explain one thing. Again, if you remember, in order to find the 92, what we did is we took the 215 and we divided that by 233. Remember? And multiplied by 100. Now, in order to find the 106.3, I'm going to take that particular number, 229, yes, I'm going to be short with numbers, and now I'm going to divide it by the previous number, not by 233, but by this 215, and multiply it by 100, and I will get that number. Okay, so the main difference is what? As you've already noticed, the main difference is here, according to the formula, we have different denominators. Everything else is the same, yes? Now, let me explain what do we mean by xt, x zeros, or xt minus 1 multiplied by 100. So first, the IF here and the IC here, they stand for the index fixed, like fixed base index and the chain base index, all right? Now, the xt's. So if I go back, let me switch to pen. If I go back, talking about the fixed base index, so fixed base index here. So let me switch to pen. Yeah, it's a pen. What I did is I took the 2015 figures and I fixed them as a base year. Yes. Now that means the 2016 will be my x1, 2017 will be the x2, and the 2018 will be my x3. Yes. So hence the xt's are basically the x1s, the x2s, the x3s, and so on and so forth, until what? Until basically the n, or well, in this case not the n, but sorry for that, but the t's, right? Until the t. And the x0, as you see, is basically our base year. All right. So according to the formula, what we did is we simply divided every single number, every single axis here, by the x0. Yes, this is basically what we did. If you remember, these numbers are all divided by the 2015 number, yes, and then at the end we simply multiply them by 100. Okay, that's simple. But regarding the other one, which is the chain base index here, instead of the x0, now we have the xt minus 1. That means what? Whenever you have the x1, the x2, the x3, you need to divide them by the previous year's numbers, not the base year, but the previous year. For example, for the x1, t minus 1, that means 1 minus 1, that becomes the 0. xt here is 2, right? x2, and hence xt minus 1 will be the x1. For the x3, it will be the x2, and so on and so forth. Okay? So basically what we're doing here in this case is we're not fixing a certain year as a base year, but we're taking the previous year's figures. Okay? That's the only difference between the fixed and the chain-based indices. Now, let's move on. As I promised, we'll be working with the real data. Yes, so in this case, in this particular slide, now we have 3 different companies: the Apple, the Tesla, and Amazon, as you see here. And I also downloaded, again, I downloaded from Yahoo Finance. You can check that later. I also downloaded the closing stock prices as of the end of individual months here. So as of 31st of January, 28th of February, March, April, May, and June. That's like, I took the first half of the year of 2019 and I collected all the closing prices for individual companies, for Apple, for Tesla, and Amazon. Okay, and what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to construct a certain hypothetical index. Okay, so these 3 companies, they are the composites, we say. All right, so within the index you have the composites as companies. Again, I simply did what here within this table? I simply combined all 3 tables as one. Okay, so far we don't have anything new, so all these numbers are taken from these 3 subtables. So once I have this table, now what I did is I took the sum of the numbers. What numbers? That's interesting. I summed up the stock prices. For example, as of 31st of January here, we have the Apple company's stock price, closing stock price 166.44. Then Tesla's stock price ended up with $307.02, right? And the Amazon ended up with $1,718.13 per share, right? So what I did is I simply added them up. Yes. So if you add these 3 numbers, you will get exactly $2,191.59. All right. So in the same manner, you're going to continue doing this for all months. Okay. So once you have these exact numbers, what you're going to do is you're going to simply again apply the principle of the fixed base index. If you remember, the fixed base index was what? It was the xt divided by the x0 multiplied by 100. Remember? So we're going to apply the same principle for this, for the so-called simple aggregate index. Okay? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to assign the January as our base here, and then in order to find the 97, what we're going to do is we're going to take the $2,132.86 and we divide that by the base here. Yes? Or we're going to take, for example, in order to find the 102.7 index number, we're going to take this number and again divide that by the what? By the base here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again very quickly draw a couple of rectangles. This would be the oval, and what I'm doing is I'm simply dividing every single one of them by the base here, and by multiplying by 100 you will get the same exact simple aggregate index numbers as I did. Okay, nothing new. So this is basically how you would construct the index, assuming that you have the simple aggregate index principle. Okay, now let's move on. Now there's another method. Okay, let's try the other method, the simple mean index, the so-called simple mean index. I do apologize for that. So let me quickly highlight it. Yeah, the simple mean index here. Now, again, we have the same data so far. We have the same dates, the same Apple, Tesla, and Amazon companies. Okay, nothing new so far. But this time, what we did is we first calculated the fixed base indices for individual companies. Okay. You remember the formula for the fixed base indices? So IF was what? It was the xt divided by the x0s, right? For individual companies this time. Okay, so hence for the Apple, again we're going to assign the 166.44 as a base here, as a base month, right? So hence we're going to divide every single number. I do apologize for that. That's a terrible digital pen. We divide every single number here by the base here, all right, and hence we're going to end up with these beautiful numbers. Okay, you're going to do the same calculations for the Tesla company and for Amazon companies. Now once you have all those fixed base indices, what we're going to do is we're going to sum them up. All right, so let me assign a letter. So the fixed base index for the Apple company will be the A, the fixed base index for Tesla will be the B, and the fixed base index for Amazon will be the C. So far we have three different columns, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to sum them up. So the A column, that's 100, plus the B column, that's another 100, plus the C column, that's another 100, gives us the 300. Or, for example, 114.1 A column, yes, plus 91.2 B column, plus 103.6 C column gives us the what? Gives us the 308.9 number, yes? So once you have this sum, what we're going to do as a last step is we simply need to divide it by a certain number. What number? Let's see it from the formula. Once you find the sum, we usually divide it by n. Now here's the question, what is n? Always remember, whenever you construct a certain index, hypothetical index in our case, yes, you need to know how many companies you are considering for this particular index. So in our case, we have only 3 companies. That's the Apple, that's the Tesla, and that's the Amazon. And hence, the n, my n, according to this formula, will be the 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these sums, like the 300, for example, and I'm going to divide it by 3 in order to get the 100. Or here, the 303.6 divided by 3 in order to get the 101.2, and so on and so forth. Okay? Well, technically what we are doing here is we're simply following this a bit scary formulas, okay? But technically they are very simple. Let me explain very quickly. The SMA stands for the simple aggregate mean index, simple aggregate index, and SMI stands for simple mean index, okay? All right, so first let me explain the SMA here by going back to here. So let me clean up the screen. So as I said, the XTs are basically the X1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, until you reach a certain t number. Okay, and we're doing what? We are putting this summation of. That means what? If I go back, if you remember, what we did here is we first summed up the numbers. Do you remember? So these are my axes. So this is for example, x0, the x1, the x2, x3, and so on and so forth, right? So in order to get this number, for example, what I did is I took the sum of these three numbers, yes? So this mathematical operation, like addition, basically is our summation nodes here, okay? So in the table, this sum basically represents our xt's, all right? And then at the end, next, what we're doing here is, once we have identified these numbers, we're dividing it by the sum of the x0 only, yes? So the x0 is basically our first month, that's the January. So what we did is, again, if you remember, we took all the sum of the xt's that we have for individual months, right? And we divided by the base here, which is the x0. And mathematically, again, this is what we have, well, including the 100 as well, yes. So once you have this numbers, you would actually call them as simple aggregate index numbers, all right? Now to understand the second formula here. Now this time it's a bit different. Why? Because before we had the summation node for numerator separately and for denominator separately, but this time we have the summation for both at the same time. Now what we do here is, first we need to identify the fraction of xt over x0. So if I go back to this relevant slide, so let me clean up this. Now, according to the formula, first we need to find the xt over x0s, yes? So this is what we did. For individual companies here, the Apple, Tesla, and Amazon, we first calculated the fixed base indices, okay? This is what we did for individual years, right? And then we, according to the formula, we take this summation nodes, which is what? Which is basically the sum of, if you remember, A column, the B column, and the C column, if you remember, right? So once you have this part of the formula, which is basically the sum of individual fixed base indices, then well, of course, by multiplying them, we're going to get those numbers. We're going to divide it by n, okay? I'm going to tell you one thing. I usually forget writing this multiplication by 100, but always remember you have to multiply by 100, okay? So we're going to divide it by n. N again is the number of companies that you have in your index. So here we have 3, and that's why all these individual numbers will be simply divided by 3 in order to get the simple mean index, okay? Well, that's the end of our lecture 4. As we always say, please, after watching this video, go through the lecture slides once more time, because within the lecture slides, which are uploaded to internet already, there are different examples, and there might be some better explanations of some items that we just covered here. All right, and please do some home readings before you come to tutorials. Thanks for watching.